There she was, just walking down the street singing Wah Diddy 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 Doo, popping her fingers and shuffling her feet singing Wah Diddy 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 Doo. She looked good, she looked fine, she looked good, she looked fine, and I nearly lost my mind. Before I knew it, she was walking next to me singing Wah Diddy 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 Doo, holding my hand just as natural as can be singing Wah Diddy 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 Doo. We walked on to my door, we walked on to my door, then we kissed a little more.
That song we just saw, that video, 59 years ago, Manfred Mann singing Do Wah Diddy. The man you saw singing that song is sitting next to me on this couch. This is the legend, Paul Jones. And Paul and I are going to sit here and reach back and touch history that occurred more than 60 years ago, way back in the beginning. We're sitting north of London right now, in his beautiful home, far away from all the activity of London. We're in the countryside, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I don't know how I'm going to get up and leave and go back to the real world, but it's going to happen soon. But before we do that, we're going to talk to Paul. Paul, take me back to the very beginning. You were born in the south of Great Britain, at the very bottom of the island.
South coast, Portsmouth, yes. It certainly is, it's on the channel.
That's where Dwight D. Eisenhower, the commander, four-star general, put together his plans and launched D-Day. Just 2 years after this young man was born. Now, I don't suppose you remember hearing about it as you were growing up. Did anybody ever talk to you about D-Day?
No, only much later on. I think when I was kind of little, people were trying to forget the war.
Yeah.
You know, but I certainly, as you say, I was born in the middle of it. And my brother, who's only less than a year and 4 months or something older than I am, reckons he can remember, you know, doodlebugs, whatever they were called, those whistling bones, you know, and things like that. I don't remember any of that, but then if I ever did remember it, I would certainly have erased it.
Did you have any relatives, any family members that talked about D-Day, talked about the war, what was going on?
Well, my father very seldom did, although he was very much involved. My father was in the Navy, and he actually rather spectacularly was the only person in the Navy, the British Navy, who ever served at every rank from absolute deck swabber, able seaman, all the way up to captain, senior captain, and he didn't make it to admiral. He just failed at the last hurdle. But nobody else in the history of the Navy has ever served. A lot of people, famously, Nelson, the great sort of English hero of the Navy, started as a deck swabber and wound up as an admiral, but he didn't serve at all the ranks in between. My father served at every single one. He didn't really talk about D-Day and all that sort of stuff. In fact, if anything, he talked more about the First War because his father died in the First World War.
Died in World War I.
Yeah. So he did have a picture of him, a photograph of him in his...
Did he ever talk about Dunkirk and what happened there with all the people coming back from France?
I'm sorry, if he did, I've forgotten it, but I'm sure he didn't, because subjects like that were kind of not on. You know, we don't talk about that. What we talk about is going to Goodwood and watching the car racing, or we talk about how lovely the weather is and we go for walks in the country.
They didn't want to bring the horror of war back into the home. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
But as we got older, my brothers and I, as we became adults in college and had our own families, that's when we had a real appreciation of what our fathers did.
Oh yeah.
Risking everything as teenage boys.
Yes.
leaving home, going to the other side of my father went both the other side of the Atlantic and the other side of the Pacific. He could have, like a lot of other men, not come back.
Yes.
But I was fortunate enough, of course, that father and uncles, they all came back. So it was great, but you, growing up, being born right there where they launched the project to save Europe, it was the biggest and the last big hope to do it, and they did it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're grateful for that, and
Yes.
that's one of the reasons why I'm over here, to appreciate this a little bit better. When you were a young kid, was music in the house? Was music in the family?
Oh yes. My mother came from a very musical family. Her father was a professional musician.
Did you know him? Did you know your grandfather?
No. He played saxophones, flute, clarinet, and I think probably the music that he did was like dance band music or maybe light classics, that sort of thing. And my mother's mother played the piano, so that was a musical family that she was born into. She played the piano. She and my father, they loved classical music, but they really sort of got off on light classics, and Ivan Novello. We'll gather lilacs in the spring again, the spring again. My father played the violin. He wasn't as good on the violin as my mother was on the piano, but then again there was music in his family as well. His father played the trumpet, not professionally. Actually, he was a glass blower. It's a good job he never got confused between the trumpet and the hot glass. So there was definite sort of musical history in the family. I didn't come up to playing anything.
But were you encouraged? Were you encouraged to play the piano?
Oh, no. I was encouraged to sing.
Really?
In fact, I was forced to sing.
They forced you to become a rock and roll legend.
No. My mother wanted me to sing. She taught me to sing, this is before my voice broke, a song which went, Vilja, the witch of the wood. I don't know what I say. In fact, I even was forced to make a record. Go in and make your own flimsy record.
Yeah. Elvis did that.
So for the Wings of a Dove, which had been a hit for a sort of, I don't know about a hit, but it had been extremely well known by a sort of child singer in Britain, in the sort of 40s and 50s. So I got this in my first ever case of serious red light fever. I could sing the song. I'd sang the song loads of times with my mother playing the piano. And they took me into this studio and somebody else was playing the piano, and I sang it dreadfully. It was just awful. However, one of the people involved in that was the music teacher at Portsmouth Grammar School, where I was a pupil. One of the people involved in that was a man called Mr. Davidson, and he was the music master at my school. He also was the choir master at Portsmouth Cathedral. He was losing people in the choir. The choir was shrinking in this cathedral, which is not what you want. So he conducted sort of auditions at the school. He got permission to do that. And
so the choir wasn't made up of school children, but it was.
There were adults, but
yeah, but he brought in the school kids because he needed to find people from school.
Yeah. Well, it may have been sort of little choristers growing up and their voices breaking. Also, choir master at the local cathedral. Passed that audition and I got into the cathedral choir. So that was my first serious sort of going at music.
Did you like it now that you've
Loved it.
arrived as a singer?
I really, really enjoyed it. I somehow, I was going to say I was befriended by a lady who I thought was immensely old. She was probably in sort of early middle age. She was singing the alto parts in the choir, and she sort of took a shine to me. I mean, I'm 10 years old or something, you know, and she taught me. She knew I couldn't read music, but she taught me the things, helped me to learn the songs, and that sort of really got me excited about music for the first time.
At that point, did you ever leave the sphere of music? Or now that you're 10 years old, music's going to be in your life forever?
I don't think I thought like that at the time. Yes, I suppose I thought, oh, this is fun, I'll carry on doing this.
I'll ride this little pony for as long as I can go. Yeah.
No, I wasn't sort of, at the moment it was just whatever we sang in church. Obviously the hymns and the psalms, but also the sort of choral music that was like Stainer's Crucifixion and, well, the Bach and Mendelssohn things that you could get and do. And so I liked all that.
Are Mom and Dad pleased with you at this point?
Yeah, I think so. Reasonably so, yes. I've left that school a few years later. There's a whole kind of different reason for it. I kind of left it under a cloud a little bit. And it was good news from my point of view because my father, who had been sort of everywhere, Singapore and Ceylon and Sri Lanka, as we call it nowadays, Korea, because that was another war zone that he needed to be in. And he wound up in Malta, which was close enough for me to go there on the school holidays. So I was at boarding school, and so I would see my parents 3 times a year in between the school terms. Yeah, everything was going well, but Lonnie Donegan had just had a hit with the Rock Island Line.
Well, the Rock Island Line is a mighty good road. Well, the Rock Island Line is the road to ride. Yeah, the Rock Island Line is a mighty good road. And if you want to ride it, gotta ride it like a fine. Get your ticket at the station on the Rock Island Line. Well, baby, ride.
You recorded that up at Decca Records, not too far from here.
Like every other boy of my age, so I'm 14 now, I get my parents to buy me an acoustic guitar. I don't know if it was any good, but I learned those 3 chords. As somebody once said, E, A, and oh, what's that other one? But it was like that. And so I learned some skiffle songs on the guitar. It takes a worried man to sing a worried song. I'm worried now, but I won't be worried long. Things like that.
At that point, all the music was skiffle.
Yeah, all the music was skiffle. Actually, in our house, we're kind of familiar with some of the sort of hit records, but it's pre-rock. People like Dennis Lotis and Lita Rosa, who sang with the Ted Heath Orchestra. And,
What can the matter be? Oh.
There was some sort of vague hints of rock and roll in what they did, but sort of slightly prettified, you know.
So in 1957, when things began to change, were you getting a sense of Elvis, a sense of Jerry Lee Lewis, a sense of Fats Domino?
Very much Elvis when I was at boarding school, and Buddy Holly.
Another Decca Records reject. Yeah.
Oh gosh, well it didn't matter, I mean, it
Doesn't matter anymore.
Well,
yeah.
For as long as it lasted. 22 when he died. All the other boys in the boarding school, I mean, it wasn't a boarding school, it was a day school, with a very tiny number of boarders. There were probably about 20 of us. 19 of them were just crazy about Elvis. I did not get Elvis.
Really? Ever or at that point?
At that point.
Okay.
I started to get him around when I heard him sing He Touched Me. It's a gospel song. Do you know, I always remember Elvis being interviewed by somebody. Now that would have been quite early, 56, something like that. And they said, would it be true, Elvis, to say that you were really mostly influenced by country music? And he said, no, sir, it wouldn't. And I kind of was expecting him to say blues, and, you know, who did Arthur Big Boy Crudup, and people like that, you know. But he didn't say that. He said, no, sir, my main influence is, and always has been, gospel music.
And that's the only area of music where he received a Grammy. Gospel.
Is that right? Yeah.
Never got a Grammy for rock and roll. I met a lady that went to high school with Elvis. Her name was Barbara Rupert. And she and her girlfriend dated Elvis, and she was dating Elvis's best friend. And she said, we were about 16 years old, and we'd be driving around Memphis on a Saturday night. And Elvis is taking us into an all-black church.
Yeah.
Why is he doing this? And after we sat there for a while, he got up and sang gospel and brought the house down.
Yeah. Wow. That's something I wish I'd been at.
I wish that was recorded.
When they were digging Heartbreak Hotel, actually that's the one record of his that I sort of did get in those early days, because it was so bluesy. I was listening to Louis Armstrong and King Oliver, whose band Armstrong played in before he kind of went solo, you know. The first records I ever bought were Nat King Cole singing Stay As Sweet As You Are. I did like it. I loved it. And the other record that I bought was Sammy Davis Jr. doing Because of You, There's a Song in My Heart. And that was really funny, because it was a two-sided 78, and on one side he imitated actors, James Stewart, Jimmy Cagney, and you know, whoever it might be. And on the other side he was doing singers. He was doing singers like Jerry Colonna, and you know, taking the mickey, sending them up. And that was really, really funny. I loved that. But the first record that I seriously bought was Dippermouth Blues by King Oliver's Creole Jazz Band with Louis Armstrong on second cornet. Oliver played cornet and Louis played second cornet. Oh, play that thing! I think I just did that at one time. I always associate Nat King Cole with Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, when he became really wealthy.
Yeah.
And he bought a house in Beverly Hills. And there was a small delegation of previous inhabitants of Beverly Hills came to tell him that they were unhappy should there be anybody
Of his type in the neighborhood.
Yes.
I've been to his
whatever
home.
euphemism they used. You
Yeah,
know.
and just being
And he
down-
said,
yeah.
and it's undesirable people in this neighborhood.
Sure.
And he said, I completely agree with you.
Why don't you
He said, if you ever see any, let me know.
Isn't that the truth? Let me know.
Yeah.
I've been to his home in Chicago. Very small home, just a row house. That's where he started, and that's where he began to perform and make his wealth, make his money, so that he could go to
Yeah.
Los Angeles.
Yes. And of course he subsequently influenced a lot of my heroes, like Ray Charles and Charles Brown.
Oh yeah. Oh,
And
I love his Christmas song.
having tried to be a guitarist and sing skiffle, I did actually have a skiffle group at school. We were called the Louisiana Four.
Why Louisiana?
I know that's what everybody says. Why Louisiana? Because the the main person for skiffle was Leadbelly, Hewley Ledbetter. Where did he come from? Shreveport or Louisiana? We played, there was a banjo player, I played guitar, there was a guy with the T-chest bass, quite a decent drummer as well. That didn't last terribly long, because it was at school, and that's the school that I was invited to leave. But anyway.
You were invited out, so you went home. You went home or a different school?
I went to, my father it was perfect timing, because my father was just finishing his 3 years or so in Malta, and he had been moved to Edinburgh. And so I went to school in Edinburgh.
Did the whole family go there?
Yeah, in Edinburgh, I fell in with a small gang that sort of were really heavily into English classical music of the 18th century. And
Sounds a little bit rowdy to me.
My voice broke very late, and I was still sort of singing, not falsetto, because it was still up there. And I became quite popular because there's a lot of music for kind of countertenor in that area of music, Henry Purcell and people like that. So I actually,
Frankie Lyman.
I started to, oh yeah, oh well, of course when you know, and when you come over to gospel music, you've got your Swan Silvertones and all those people. Yeah, that kind of that's always been something for me, to be able to sing up there, and I can. But also at the same time, I was learning to love jazz even more. And if I had any interest in sort of rock and roll, it was Bo Diddley, Chuck Berry, and Fats Domino.
One of the records you cut, it sounds very Bo Diddley.
Oh man, he was a major influence on
Yeah.
me, as a writer as well.
I'm thinking.
He had the most amazing voice. I didn't even notice it until later, much later, more recently in my life, when I was a disc jockey. I wasn't a disc jockey. I had a radio program anyway, and I played blues and stuff. And I suddenly thought, I never remembered how good Bo Diddley's voice was. It's like one of those people like Jackie Wilson that you don't really sort of notice that you could be listening to somebody who, if they wanted to, they could take on classical music. Because Wilson would have been a tenor, but whereas I think probably Bo Diddley was more baritone. But he had a magnificent voice, and but it was all those sort of like slightly jokey songs that he wrote.
Yeah.
I loved that.
Yeah, he had a lot of great music that was a little bit off the beaten rock and roll path.
Yes.
He was a little bit different. And speaking of beats, he had his own beat, the Bo Diddley beat, and Buddy Holly used it. I heard you using it, and it's obvious that you were influenced by Bo Diddley.
Yeah, yes, very much so. I'm hanging out with, Alexis Corner and all the, right, okay, do we know about Alexis Corner? He was you couldn't really say that he was if he was the father of British blues, which to me he was, the grandfather was a jazz band leader called Chris Barber. Chris Barber was actually Lonnie Donegan's boss. Lonnie was the banjo and guitar player in Chris Barber's jazz band. And they introduced skiffle to Great Britain because they would do jazz gigs. It was a traditional jazz band, basically Louis Armstrong, Buddy Bolden, all that early stuff. In the intermission of the two halves of their concerts, they would have a small skiffle set, in which Chris Barber, who was a trombonist, and a really brilliant one, he would play the bass. And so they would have a banjo player and a guitar player and the drummer from the band, and everybody else would take a break, and they would just do this skiffle session, maybe 3 or 4 songs, and then the second set would begin. And that's how skiffle came to Britain, really, because Lonnie Donegan was that man, the drummer. And that's how Rock Island Line came about, because the bass player on Rock Island Line is Chris Barber. And Chris Barber, who later renamed his band the Chris Barber Jazz and Blues Band, was really the man who started. He also played the harmonica as well. He was the man who sort of really set the scene for British blues. But having had the scene set, Alexis Corner, who took over from Lonnie when Lonnie went solo from Chris Barber's band, Alexis did the job with Chris Barber. But then Alexis went on his own, and he and a guy called Cyril Davis, who was a 12-string player originally, but also excellent on the harmonica, they started to play British blues. And really, the Rolling Stones, the Yardbirds, Manfred Mann, everything, didn't actually come from Alexis Corner. London groups maybe, yes. But I didn't even live in London, I lived in Oxford. And I had a band there, which was sort of partly made up of jazzers, but was a blues band. And we didn't play that often, but we would get student gigs. When Alexis Corner opened up the Ealing Club, that was in March '62, that was really the start of British blues, although I had already been playing blues with my band in Oxford. In fact, I thought at that time that I had the only blues band in Britain. I was so wrong.
Now, I stopped at the Ealing Club yesterday.
Yeah.
I couldn't get in, it was shut down, it's called the Red Room now, but I went over there hoping to get a sense of the venue, blues. This was cornered in the basement.
Yeah. It had a terrible condensation problem, because it was kind of like a cave in a way. All these people would jam in there, and of course they didn't have anything like those sort of health and safety rules about maximum occupation. It was just jammed. I mean, you had to sort of squeeze through people to get all the way to the bar from the far end. With all those people sweating and breathing and stuff, you know.
And no ventilation.
No ventilation. The air would rise up to the ceiling and then condense, and then and then cool.
Yeah.
And the water would drop out of it.
That precipitation. Yeah.
So they actually had to have canvas over the drum kit, because the drums would be completely unplayable with all that stuff dripping on them.
Wow,
Anyway,
I never thought of that.
that club was absolutely amazing. But
Now, what do you say? Some of the people that played in there, the Stones, before they were the Stones, played there.
yes,
Elton John, when he was Reginald Dwight, played there.
did you really?
Oh yeah.
Reg Dwight, yes, he must have done with Long John Baldry probably, and a very young Rod Stewart as well. People like that. In those very early days, none of the rest of us had gigs. It was just Alexis Corner. '62, yeah, okay. I haven't got, my band is not moving from Oxford, it's not getting any gigs anywhere, but it's just doing the odd sort of...
College fraternity.
yeah, sort of, again, the student union bar or something like that.
Yeah.
When Alexis Corner opened that club, it was a jazz club, and he just had Saturday nights, just only Saturday. So only one blues night in that club. We would just all gather. That's where I met people from the Animals, Spencer Davis group, and goodness knows who, and Mick and Keith and Brian. We would all meet there, and that's where I first laid eyes on Mick and Keith, although I knew Brian already because that was a geographical thing. He lived in Cheltenham, I lived in Oxford. We sort of met up.
You performed with him at times, didn't you?
Yeah, we used to go crash parties, and I would try to play the harmonica. Brian taught me how to play. Brian Jones.
Brian Jones,
Yeah.
one of the founders of the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, well, he and I used to hang out and just listen to each other's records and stuff. And I had somehow walked into a record shop somewhere and heard an album by T-Bone Walker. I absolutely adored T-Bone Walker. Wonderful, but I was never going to be a guitarist. But on that record, there was a harmonica player. It was Junior Wells, who was one of the people who sort of like took over from Little Walter with Muddy Waters. Junior played on a couple of tracks of that T-Bone Walker album. Bright idea of one of the Ertegun brothers, I imagine, but anyway, it was odd to put a harmonica player with T-Bone because he never had harmonica players. Anyway, he did on this one album, and he did a song called Play On Little Girl, and it had that kind of blues stop time, one of that sort of thing. And Junior, I went out and bought a harmonica.
Is this your introduction to the harmonica?
Yeah, well,
And now,
no, I'd heard Sonny Terry, I'd heard one or two other people. I never sort of thought, that's what I'm gonna do. But I did when I heard Junior Wells. I bought a harmonica, and I used to sort of play with Brian and one or two other people that we got together with. And Brian said, "You're doing that all wrong." So I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "What key is that harmonica?" I said, "It's C." He said, "And what key are you playing it in?" I said, "Well, C." He said, "That's where you're going wrong. This is a blues. We're playing blues. Do you want to play blues? Play that harmonica in G. And if you want to play in G, get one in whatever it is. You know, the next one up, D." So he said, "You've got to take the you're starting with the bottom hole on the left. That's the C. And then the draw note from that is D, and then the blow note on the next one up. C, D. The next one up is E, and the draw note is G. Treat that as the root note, and then learn the harp that way." Changed my life. Changed my life. Because I found out you don't have to play it in one key. You can play it in, the great Big Walter, Shaky Horton, used to play in first position, which is playing a C harp in C. You can do it. It's more difficult, but you do. And once you've learned that you don't have to play it in just one key, you can play it in two keys. You think, I can play it in 3, I can play it in 4, I can play it in 5 keys, 6. And so that just changed my life completely.
and today you are the president of what organization?
Well, it used to be called the National Harmonica League of Great Britain. Now it's called Harmonica UK, because that's more sort of up to the minute. It's Harmonica UK, and I am indeed the president, yes. They haven't got rid of me yet. is that I appreciate being able to help people in any way I can. But Brian, once I'd learned to play it as well as him, or nearly.
Did he know that you were as good as he was?
I don't know, but I think I was. He said, he was darn good though. Really, really good musicians. Jazzers, really. And if they had been able to make a living from jazz, they would have. But they were just... Anyway, they were wonderful people to play with. And I got that job, and it was paying money. And I knew darn well that Brian's dream of becoming rich and famous lay somewhere in the future. I didn't realise it lay only about 6 months in the future. But anyway, I just thought he was being stupidly optimistic. And anyway, I had a job that paid money. And
so you obviously knew better than Brian. So
yeah.
You went on with your plans.
I had to sing the hits of the day. You know, the Bobbies.
So
Roses are red, my love.
there you go, Bobby Vinton. What are you doing at this point while he's chasing his dream? Where's your attention?
Is to make a living from the singing the pop songs and the dance band stuff.
You're not going to sell vacuum cleaners like the other guys.
No.
You're
no.
going to make an entire living from your musical
Yeah,
career.
and but I'm also going to carry on doing blues
Okay.
as a hobby. And if I make some money from the blues as well, that's great.
Saturday night down at the Ealing Club?
Yeah, I'm still going down to the Ealing
Yeah.
Club. And in fact, I'm sitting in with Alexis Corner wherever he's playing. And very soon after that, he started to play at the Marquee Club. And I was there every day. Every time he played, I was there, right in front of the bandstand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all did that at the Ealing Club. Right along the front of the bandstand, just Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Brian Jones, me, Andy Wren, Ronnie Wood's brother Art Wood, and we're all along there, and every time he finishes a song, we go.
We loved you, yeah.
And he called us up. I mean, Alexis was such a generous, warm-hearted. He was a wonderful man, and you know he would call up Brian, and Brian would sort of play, and he'd call up Mick, and Mick would sing, and he'd call up Andy, and he would sing, that's what we did, you know. And in fact, pretty soon they were starting to do well, you know, playing at the Station Hotel in Richmond and things like that, and getting more and more gigs. And I get a call from Ken Goddard, and he asks me if I didn't get a call from him. I got a message from the Marquee Club to call him, a little piece of paper with his number and his name written on it. So I called him, and he said, "Do you know who Manfred Mann is?" And I said, "You mean the guy that writes in Jazz News?" There was a very cheap newspaper at the time, and there was a regular column from this guy called Manfred Mann, and it was like how to swing, how to improvise on, you know, whatever it is, chords, jazz tips. And I said, "Do you mean him?" And this guy Ken Goddard said, "Yes." I said, "What about him?" And she said, "Well, he and his friend Mike Hugg are forming a blues band, a rhythm and blues band, because nobody formed a blues band in 1962. It was a rhythm and blues band. Apparently they knew lots of capable musicians, but they didn't know any singers. Someone had asked somebody at the Marquee Club if they knew of any singers who might be interested. And somebody at the Marquee Club, actually it was a guy called Bill Carey, who was one of the sort of MDs, one of the announcers. He said, "Well, you might try this guy, Blue Boy Jones," because that's what I was called at the time. In my dance band mode, I was called Paul Peterson, the manager of the dance band decided that Paul Jones was a stupid name, and it's the name of a piece of music which nobody plays or listens to. Anyway, he said, I think it should be called Paul Peterson. There already was a Paul Peterson.
For the Donna Reed show, he had a song called My Dad.
My dad, that's right,
Now
yeah.
Here's a Man.
Yeah. They called me Paul Peterson, and I didn't have any choice. So I was called Blue Boy Jones when I sat in with Alexis. So they...
Did you use that name, Blue Boy Jones?
Yeah.
That was the name you went by, or people,
Well, actually-
people just referred to you as that nickname?
Actually, I dropped Blue Boy and started calling myself P.P. Jones, as in B.B. King, Z.Z. Hill or somebody, you know, or J.J. Johnson, trombonist, jazz trombonist. Anyway, so I thought P.P. Jones, that's good, that's who I'll be. They said, you know, I want to try him. So this guy got out and said, would you audition? And I said, okay. And I went along and auditioned and got that job as well.
Where'd you go to audition?
It was actually it was a reggae or ska club, or blue beat, whatever you called it in those days, whatever phase it was. It was called the Roaring Twenties. It was in Carnaby Street where all the up-to-the-minute clothes shops were. I went there and auditioned on a rainy afternoon, and came away with the job. I found out a little bit later on that there were 6 people in the band at that time. They didn't have a guitar player. They had piano, bass, drums, and 3 horn players: trumpet, alto saxophone, and tenor saxophone. And there were 6 of them. And I found out later, somebody told me, probably Manfred, he said, 2 of us thought you were good, 2 of us didn't think you were good, and the other 2 said he'll do until we find someone. So I said, yeah.
So that means you got the job.
I got the job. And yeah,
That's quite a recommendation out of the 6 of them.
what did they know?
Yeah, well, we showed them, so, okay, you hired
And
them.
the first thing I had to show them was some blues, some you know, because the only blues they knew were sort of jazz tunes, you know, Duke Ellington
Yeah,
tunes
the
and things
commercial
like
stuff.
that kind of blues.
So, okay, now what do we do, guys? I'm your singer. What are we gonna record something? We got gigs lined up? What are we up to?
Yeah, well, we got gigs lined up.
Okay.
They already had lined up a residency in a pub in Southampton along the coast from Portsmouth, and they were talking to the person who ran that about doing some gigs in Portsmouth as well. There was also a club in a basement in Bournemouth. So we were the South Coast of England blues band.
Were you always busy traveling between these clubs?
Well, it all fell into place pretty quickly. We were doing those were all residencies. We had the Tuesday in Southampton, Wednesday in Bournemouth, Thursday in Portsmouth. And pretty quickly we had a gig at the Marquee Club in London on Mondays. So we were working 4 nights a week, and then the weekends were free to pick up whatever we could. So we really were sort of like making a living almost immediately.
I was just going to ask you that. Now you've got a career. You're able to pay the bills.
Yes.
Okay? This is what everybody wants.
Not bad. Actually, to be honest, I had a day job. I worked as a travelling salesman for a jazz record company called Esquire. It was a one-man and his wife operation, a guy called Carlo Kramer, who was a musician himself, and his wife was called Greta, and they ran this record label, which had some trad, but mostly modern jazz. And the modern jazz was like English name players like Ronnie Scott and Tubby Hayes, and also they picked up the distribution in the United Kingdom for 2 or 3 really important American labels. Prestige, Blue Note. There was a third one which I can't remember immediately. You know, they had on their label the likes of Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, the Modern Jazz Quartet, Thelonious Monk, Sonny Rollins, and my job was to, we had 2 salesmen working for this company. I had to do London and the other guy had to do the rest of the country. And I used to carry these 12-inch LPs, because that's what it was, in a briefcase, and go into record shops and say, I'm from Esquire Records, and I'd like to show you our currently available material. And the guy would say, get out of here. Or he might say, okay, what do you got? I remember in particular, I mean, I would go to the sort of proper jazz shops, they're like Dobell's and Ray's, and you know, they would say, oh yeah, haven't you got the new Sonny Rollins yet? And I'd say, no, not for another couple of weeks, and all sorts of things. One time I went into a place on the north side of London, quite near where I actually lived. I took out of my briefcase the sort of current things that we had, and there they were. As I say, Miles Davis and Sonny Rollins and Modern Jazz Quartet, Thelonious Monk, and I put them down on his counter, and he looked at them and he said, no, that's nigger music, you want the shop down the road. I found that absolutely revolting. What could I do? I said, all right, sir, thank you very much. And I picked up.
In what year? Is this still 62?
Oh, this is 62 still, yeah.
If you look at what was going on in the United States at that time,
Yeah.
it wasn't so unusual for him to react that way.
no,
It
no.
was rather, sadly, common.
Yeah, actually I had one particular album by Stan Getz. You remember him?
Oh yeah?
And it was live at a club in Boston. Boston. I thought that's where everyone was enlightened. He had to leave his drummer behind. He just had a quartet, piano, bass, drums and him on saxophone. He had to leave his drummer behind and take a local drummer because his drummer was black. Unbelievable. In a jazz club? I found that totally unbelievable. But anyway, stuff like that happened.
Well, you look back at the attitudes, the mindset, it wasn't that so long ago. That's only 60 years ago. The people were expressing these attitudes about other human beings.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Well, actually, it's still, you know.
We know that, but it's a little bit more.
Fortunately,
It's a little bit
smaller
more, you know,
group of
suppressed,
people now.
and we don't see it quite as blatantly.
Mhm.
Yeah, but back then, that was so common.
They're talking to somebody whose whole life has been black music. You know, one of the reasons I never picked up on Elvis Presley or Buddy Holly to the same extent as I did with, you know, the other ones, was because they had wrong colour skin. I mean, if anything, I was prejudiced in the other direction.
You know, it's not so funny that you say that, because so many people of your stature have told me that over the years.
Yes.
So you're encountering this while you're trying to sell your product, your records, and as soon as this man says that, you say, there's no way I'm going to be able to reason with this individual.
Oh, no chance.
Thank you. Goodbye. Down the road.
And you've got to stay peaceful.
You know, I'm not out to make enemies. I'm not out to manufacture headaches. Okay, so yeah, you just keep it and walk away. Yeah.
And they'll learn.
Yeah, they'll learn. They'll get smacked in the face with the truth someday, but it's not for me to teach them. I've got other things to do. So you leave, you go down the road, and you're singing, you're making money from all the gigs, you're paying the bills, and you're also making some money as a salesman.
Yeah.
So, sounds like you got a pretty good thing going, buddy.
Yes. But we haven't got a hit record yet.
Not yet, but you may never have one, okay? Don't count on it. But what changes all that?
Well, we auditioned for various record companies because, you know, we saw all these people making deals with record companies. And we thought, well, you know, when I say all these people, notably the Stones, obviously the Beatles had.
Well, wait a minute. This is 62. It hadn't happened yet. Now, in 60...
Well, no, 62, the Beatles were already at it, weren't they?
Well, they were at it here, on this side of the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Okay? We didn't know who they were until Jack Parr put them on TV at the end of 63 in the United States.
And actually, the music is rock and roll. Now, we've never, in my 7 years at NBC, ever on the Tonight Show or this show, ever had a rock and roll act. But I'm interested in the Beatles.
With a love like that, you know you should be the yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's nice to know that England has finally risen to our cultural level. Ed Sullivan's going to have the Beatles on live in February, and we are only...
And we got a glimpse of this strange appearance. They looked different. Everything about them was unusual. In the United States, we were in mourning for losing President Kennedy. All of a sudden, this new music from a different source is going to make us leave this depression.
Yeah.
We're going to start to laugh and smile. And when they landed on February 7th, it was a Friday night, it was my brother's birthday. They landed at JFK Airport and they showed us rock and roll is here to stay, and they're bringing us even more with a different accent, different appearance, and we as kids, we loved it. They had long hair. And our fathers, who got out of the Army and the Navy and the Marines, their hair was still short. You know, we just got rid of their commander-in-chief as our president. You keep marching to our own beat, our own military beat. And now these guys are saying, now we're going to do something different. Okay? And we're accepting it.
Yeah.
And it's all over the TV. And now, anybody with a British accent here wants to cut a record is going to get a contract because we can sell all that vinyl over there.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you hadn't got there yet. This is 62,
Well, no,
and now you're talking 64.
Actually, I did that audition with Manfred Mann and Mike Hugg. That would be so late-ish in 62.
Okay.
We really started working properly in early 63.
The twist dominated everything. Chubby Checker and the twist.
Checker.
Yeah. and then you've got Sam Cooke twisting the night away.
Oh,
And then you've got
Sam Cooke, though. Come on.
right. Everybody's doing the twist though. And Sherry. That song in October of 62 was #1. That was about the twist too. He's inviting this young girl to come on out to my twist party.
Oh, really?
Oh, that! Listen to Frankie Says, "Come to my twist party." The whole world.
Yeah.
Sherry, babe. Everybody's talking the twist.
Yeah.
So you're not into the twist. You're still in the blues. You're going to jump over the twist and get right into rock and roll.
Yeah. As I say, my first job really was to teach Manfred, Mike, and the others some Jimmy Witherspoon songs. Ray Charles, well, Muddy Waters, Sonny Boy Williamson, Little Walter. Now, Chess Records, of course, was huge. Muddy, Wolf, Walter, Sonny Boy, and loads of others. That Chess Records was enormous. They were distributed by Pye Records, B-Y-E, in the United Kingdom. And wow, you had to fork out at least £1 to get one of those. No, actually, it was a bit more than that to get one of those albums. So I was teaching them those things, but I was also writing, trying to, because for some reason I knew that that was what you were supposed to do. We actually went all the way through 63, building up this following. We probably auditioned for Decca Records and possibly one other, and failed.
Did you go up to West Hampton?
West
Same
Hampton.
place the Beatles got to thrown out of.
We failed. The Beatles failed at Decca as well, so we were in good company. And then we went to EMI, where the Beatles already were, and we auditioned for them. And at that point, we were called. When they first formed the band, it was called the Man Hug Bluesmen.
God, look out, it's in your town. It's called Manfred Mann and it runs around. Come on, all you chicks and grown-up hands. It's one Manfred Mann, but it's 5 men. I'm Cocker.
Dropped that. They changed men into brothers, Man Hug Blues Brothers, and then they dropped the Man Hug, so we were just called the Blues Brothers. And we auditioned for EMI as the Blues Brothers. And they said, well, we like the band, but you're going to have to change your name because no one will ever get anywhere with a silly name like the Blues Brothers. And so I said, okay, well, give us the weekend and we'll think of some names. And they said, no, you don't need to think of names. You've got the best name already. It's Manfred Mann. But he's just the keyboard player. You know,
Oh,
this is a cooperative band. We're all equals. We're all taking the same money as each other. And you want to name the band after one of us? And they said, well, or don't you want the contract?
Okay.
So I thought some machinations have
Now
gone
this
on
is
here.
at the end of 63, because they already signed the Beatles in June of 62.
No, it was earlier than the end of 63.
Okay.
Because in the course of the second half of 63, we put out 2 failed singles. The first one was a composition of Manfred's called Why Should We Not? And it was instrumental. All I did on it was play harmonica. It did nothing. Then we put out a song that I had written, which was called Cock a Hoop. And now, Cock a Hoop had the Bo Diddley beat. More or less, it was sort of slightly changed, but it was very, very nearly the same. We call it the Bo Diddley beat, but actually it had been used in New Orleans before.
Oh shit. I call that cross-pollination. He took something that somebody else did, adjusted it to his own, and it became his own.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So that was me being massively influenced by Wah Diddy, not just with the music, but with the words as well, because the song was about the Manfreds. Look out, it's in your town, it's called Manfred Mann and it runs around. Something coming, I can't remember what the line was, but what rhymed with it was, it's one Manfred Mann, but it's 5 men. And then we actually said 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Or was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Oh, yeah, it's one Manfred Mann, but it's 5 men. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anyway, that was at the end of, no, that was sort of like September or thereabouts of '63. By that time there was a pop program on the television called Ready, Steady, Go. And they were using as a signature tune an instrumental hit. Which was our new single, and it might get into the charts. So we said, yeah, okay, so we go and we do it. And that record did nothing as well. But a while later they said to us, we like those records. Would you guys be interested in writing a theme tune for us, a signature tune?
And performing
for this program? But yeah, absolutely. And they said, well look, here's what we want. We like the instrumental lineup that you had on Why Should We Not. We like Cock-a-Hoop. We like the rhythm of it. We like that sort of beat that you had. And we also want a countdown. So I said, yeah, okay. What else? And they said, well, the first half a minute, at least, of the record, of the track, should be instrumental. So you just have the countdown, and then instrumental until at least 30 seconds in. Then you can start the song. And we said, okay. Is that? And they said, that's about all we need. So we went away, and we went, right, that's what you start with. And then they want a countdown. And Manfred said, well, there's 5 of us. 5, 4, and he said, let's just use the pentatonic blues scale. Sorry, octave, 7th, 5th, minor 3rd, root. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, then you're off. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now, how much of that did they use as their lead-in to their theme song?
They went well into the vocal.
Oh, they did?
Yes. About a line and nearly 2 lines of the vocal. Onwards, onward rode the 600, down the valley on the horses they thundered.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Onwards, onward rode the 600. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Down the valley on the horses they thundered. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Which incidentally was a steal from Alfred Lord Tennyson, the great Victorian poet in English.
Cross-pollination.
Cross-pollination, lovely. I don't know how it came about that it was a single as well. I think probably the record company, we actually recorded it at the record company, EMI, Abbey Road, and probably our producer John Burgess said, this is a hit, especially if it's going to be on Ready Steady Go every week. It was. And that was our first taste of the charts.
And then that's basically the end of your career. Boom. Then you got a big surprise. That's the one that you brought over to America, and it hit us in the summer of 1964.
Yeah.
Do Wah Diddy. Now it was
Actually, 54321 actually got released in America, believe it or not, on Prestige Records.
I don't remember it though as having an impact.
No, it didn't.
I don't
Absolutely
I
not.
don't remember
We had
having any kind of a big. I mean, boom! When you said that, when you started off with Do Wah Diddy, it hit us. We were all talking about it. What is this and who is this? It was out the year before, the Exciters.
by the Exciters, yeah.
But it didn't do anything.
They had Tell Him, of course.
Oh, that was big.
Yeah.
That was a big hit.
Bigger record, yeah.
Yeah, and that had an impact. That was a big hit. Brenda Reed, the lead singer. They have a son who's in the record business, who's a producer and very much involved in the record business. But yeah, I met.
Can I give you a little anecdote? I make a film called Privilege. Yeah, shortly after leaving Manfred Mann.
Privilege. Slate 1, take 1. The start of a new experience in the cinema. Privilege. A new insight on a new kind of idol.
I'm a person. I'm a person. I'm a person. I'm a person.
Stephen Shorter, pop singer. He's not so much a person as a puppet whose strings are pulled for a scheme of total nightmare. Privilege is a terrifying and withering expose in an age of illusion.
I need my freedom, not your sympathy.
Starring Paul Jones, one of Britain's top pop entertainers, as Stephen Shorter. Gene Shrimpton, international favorite, the face on every major magazine cover the world over.
I've been a bad.
Now the girl with the most beautiful face makes her sensational debut on the cinema screen to give a portrait at once unconventional and memorable.
They're bringing it out in America, and they call me. You know, we come over to America and do some promo. Yes, of course. Come to New York, and do some radio, and I can't remember whether I did any TV or anything, but some magazines and things, interviews. And for some reason, I wound up meeting Lieber and Stoller, and they come to see me at my hotel for some reason.
You're in what, New York?
Yeah. They say, do you like ribs? And I said, I don't know what you mean. And they said, well, you don't, obviously. So they explained to me about ribs, and they said, we'd like to take you to this really great rib joint. And I say, okay, come on, let's go. So go to this rib joint, and the three of us sitting there. Waitress there, they went like this, and the waitress came over to the table and said, hello guys, obviously they're regulars there. So she says, what'll it be? And one of them says to me, okay Paul, you go first. And I'm going, looking at the thing, and wondering what to order. And the waitress says, you don't remember me, do you? I don't know a waitress in New York. I said, no, I don't. Should I? She said, I'm Brenda from the Exciters.
Oh God, I'm getting chills thinking about this.
I felt so embarrassed. This is ridiculous. Not that I didn't take anything away from the Exciters, because their record had come and gone before ours came out. But even so, afterwards I thought, surely Jerry and Mike did not do that on purpose. And then I thought,
Wait a minute. Sounds like they did.
I had met her before. That's why she said.
You don't remember
Yeah.
that. It's now the spring of '64, and you're schooling the Manfreds in all of the things that they have to learn to be really first-class musicians and performers. And this song, Ellie Greenwich, Jeff Berry, Do Wah Diddy, it was out before. What made you think you could do better with this song?
I heard the record on probably Radio Luxembourg, which was the thing that you could pick up over here, and it was much more likely to be playing the kind of stuff that I would like to listen to. People look back on that and say, well, that's the point at which the Manfreds, you know, became a pop group. However, to me, where did I find that song? You know, on a rhythm and blues radio station. I heard that thing on Radio Luxembourg, and I thought, that's going to be huge. Yeah, I just thought, oh, what a great record. It's Jeff Barry and Ellie Greenwich.
But it was a great record the way you did it.
The way Exciters did it. It was a great record.
Well, why didn't it have the impact that you had?
No plugging.
You think they had nothing to push it? No enthusiasm
I
behind
think it came out on a label called Stateside, which was a label which EMI had, where they put all the American things that they didn't know whether they'd be a hit or not. And they never really worked it. If they'd worked it, that would have been a big hit in Britain.
So you think that if it had been a big hit, there'd have been no room for you doing it
I
again?
wouldn't do it. No.
Yeah.
However, it came and went.
Right.
And I'd gone out and I'd rushed out and bought the record.
So it was you, Paul Jones, who loved the record and brought it into the Manfred Mann group.
Yeah.
And you said, what? Hey guys, listen to this. And what'd they say? Ah, come on.
I don't remember what they said. All I know is we wound up playing it. And we were doing it on the gigs. And we were in EMI Records. We were in Abbey Road. And we had just recorded 3 songs. You had 3-hour sessions, and you had to get 3 songs done in 3 hours. And we had done 3 hours, and we still had 20 minutes. And John Burgess said, you guys got anything else in your repertoire that we haven't recorded?
I've heard this story from the groups 1,000 times.
Yeah. It's a good time-old story. And we said,
Rock Around the Clock, Bill Haley and the Comets, and Little Darling by the Diamonds.
who wrote Rock Around the Clock? And someone had already done it, hadn't it?
Bill Haley and the Comets, they were a country group, and they were just starting to play with this new rock and roll.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, when I interviewed one of the Comets, he said, "Look at the label. Tell me, what does Decca Records call our new hit?" It's called a foxtrot. We didn't even know what rock and roll was back then. So they call rock and roll. If you look at the label, you'll see foxtrot.
Oh, how lovely a foxtrot.
Yeah, that's 1, 2, 3 o'clock. So you go, okay, guys, let's try this. So we all go into the studio. We go EMI again. You're at EMI.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh.
We were with EMI all the time. I was in the band.
The way you began that song.
And we played it to him, and he said, "That's it."
Boom.
No, it has the organ first going, and then there she was, just walking down the street singing.
There she was, just walking down the street singing. Snapping her fingers and shuffling her feet singing. She looked good, she looked fine, she looked good, she looked fine, and I nearly lost my mind.
The way you hit it with such power, with such voice. I mean, we, as young kids in the United States, listen, boom, that's all we talked about, was that do Wah Diddy.
Yeah.
I mean, what does do Wah Diddy mean? I don't know, but we were speaking that language. All because Manfred Mann said so.
I asked Jeff Barry what do Wah Diddy meant. He said it means I never need to work again.
That is so true. That is so funny. I love it. We sing it, and now we're performing it. You're traveling across the country, and you're performing this. the reception had to be just great for the live performances and seeing Manfred Mann.
It was pretty good. I don't think the company that put on that tour was first rate.
Yeah.
Top. Or maybe it was, but it may have been a big company, but they sort of gave it to a more junior person. I know that Peter and Gordon were on the tour as well.
Peter and Gordon being on that tour with you.
Yeah.
And there's, let's see, they had World Without Love at 64.
We didn't draw big crowds, and they put us in like sport halls. You could see loads of empty seats and everything, so it wasn't a big success. In fact, when the New York date was coming up, and that was at the Paramount or the Fox, one or the other.
No, there was not a Fox in New York, I don't think. No, the Brooklyn Paramount.
Brooklyn Paramount.
Yeah.
They said, guys, we're going to have to beef up the bill. So we're going to get a local group on as well. You know this story?
No, I'm guessing Young Rascals?
No.
Local group out of New York, you say?
Yeah.
Local group, or Janie Americans? Drifters. Come on.
The Exciters.
Oh no. Really?
That's how much they knew their business. They put the Exciters on.
Now I'm getting angry. They really insulted Brenda.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose they probably, the Exciters probably put more bottoms on seats than
Quite possibly so, but what did they sing? What could they sing other than their two biggest hits?
Tell them, of course, no, they sang Do Wah Diddy in the first half and we sang it in the second half.
Are you serious?
I am not, I'm perfectly serious.
I would never. As a matter of fact, when I go to concerts and we've got Manfred Mann coming up to perform as house music when the crowd's coming in to play Do Wah Diddy, you don't do that. Okay, because we're going to see them perform it live. Okay? Now this is even worse. You're bringing in the... I'm shocked that you're telling me this.
I'm still shocked all these years later. But I'm no longer surprised.
Yeah. So you got to... I'm going to look it up. I'm going to look up the name of the promoter. I'm sure they're out of business. They have to be out of business. They had to die a slow death. But that's amazing. How do you feel?
Embarrassed, angry, but I tend to not to stay angry.
Yeah, and you can't show it. You got to get out there on that stage.
Oh
and enjoy doing what you're doing.
Get out.
What did they say? What did Brenda and Lillian Walker? I remember her, a sweet lady. What did she say? What did those ladies say to you when you performed after they did and knocked the house down?
Do you know, I wish I could remember. We must have spoken backstage at least.
At least before the performance, but maybe not after.
Nothing else. I would have said,
I'm sorry.
I love your record. I mean, if only the record company in Britain had worked on it, you would have had the hit where we had it.
Yeah. That's nice of you to say. That's nice of you to appreciate that. Yeah.
But anyway.
Wow, I'm in shock at the abuse. Okay. All right, so you traveled around the country in '64. Now in '64, the Beatles went to Washington, D.C. and performed at what they called the Uline Arena. It was a big arena that had a Quonset hut type roof. And Dave Clark 5 with Les Reed followed them later that in May. Did you ever perform there? You must have performed there. No?
America just never worked for us. We came back from that tour with nothing. Our manager had signed a deal where the American promotion company would pay our airfares from London to America and from America back to London. We would pay all the internal American.
Out of your earnings,
Yeah,
you had
out
to
of
pay
our
your
earnings,
expenses.
Yeah.
Whoa. Where did you go? Do you remember where you went?
But I can remember that we played. Travis Womack was added to the bill. I think he did the whole tour. But I distinctly remember his playing when we did Tampa. I think it was Tampa, Florida. We also played, I think we did a gig in Toronto. Because there was one, I can't remember whether we were supposed to be playing in Cincinnati. That was in between Toronto and Tampa. That's how the tour was, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It had to be Cleveland.
Is that the place they call the Mistake on the Lake?
You're the second person that I met that I've talked to here in Great Britain that I mentioned I'm from Cleveland, and they say Mistake on the Lake.
But I don't know who said that. But
that was a big joke. It was billed as the best location in the nation, being halfway between New York and Chicago, and then you could go south from there.
yeah.
And then that joke came out, Mistake on a Lake.
I do remember that we did play in Chicago on that tour. I was looking for a club in the hope that maybe I would be able to hear Buddy Guy or somebody. I found a club where Art Blakey's Jazz Messengers were playing, and I thought, oh, well, that'll do. You know, I stumbled on it while looking for, I don't know, a blues club. Went to the door and said, you know, how much is it? And they said, show us your ID. You're not old enough to get in here. I'm 22. And I said, and the guy said, show us your ID. I said, oh, sorry, what's ID? He said, your passport or something, you know. And I said, oh, I left the passport back at the hotel. And he said, we can't come in here, you're too young. You have to be 18 or something. You know. Just remember that one silly moment. I also remember that it was raining quite a lot, and my shoes were letting water.
Yeah.
I remember that hotel room at the airport in Cleveland. Peter Asher and I sat chatting for hours. We became really good friends. And it was a couple of years later, I said to him, I rang him up and I said, have you ever considered record production? And he said, actually I have, why? And I said, would you like to produce me? And, I was the first artist he ever produced.
So before he, Linda Ronstadt,
Oh yes.
all this great stuff he produced. Now, you were as Paul Jones.
Yes, I'd left the Manfreds by that time. 67 years.
After your massive hit, Do Wah Diddy, Sha-La-La came, that was your next record and your next hit in
Yeah.
succession.
Yeah.
You guys are back on top.
It was number 3 in England. About number 12.
Sha-la-la, say you love me too. Sha-la-la, my love is true. Let's spend our lives together. We'll be happy forever, yeah. Sha-la-la, la-la-la-la, yeah. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, oh yeah. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la.
We were, us 15-year-old kids were singing your music. We didn't walk in that, playing baseball in the church baseball yard. You know, it's not my turn to bat, so we're sitting on the sidewalk, sitting on the bench. Sha-la-la-la-la-la, you know. we're just doing that because we don't know what the First Amendment to the Constitution says, which gives us the right to free speech, but we know the words to your song. So who are these people that are captivating our mind, making us know their message, but we don't know what the Constitution says? We don't know our school lessons, but we know the words.
Yeah.
So that's why the impact you guys had on us was so important. We didn't really appreciate it at the time, but looking back,
Of course, Sha-La-La was the Shirelles. I heard the record, I bought the record, we learned the record,
yeah.
and then we did the record. And unfortunately, Shirley Alston fell into the prevailing, or somewhat prevailing, game of complaining that we had stolen a hit from her. If we hadn't done that, she would have had a big hit with that song. The truth of the matter is, and I looked it up in Billboard R&B hits from 1942 to
Yeah.
and there's the evidence. Her Sha-La-La, or Shirel's Sha-La-La, came out, stopped, and before we put out Sha-La-La, they actually had 2 more singles out before we put out Sha-La-La. So there was no way that we stole sales from her. It's sorry to say that, but you know. So after Sha-La-La, another record from my collection. I hear things on the radio, I buy them, I learn the song. We learn the song, and this one was Come Tomorrow.
And tonight you would hear the saddest song of the year, and you'd be mine once again. Come tomorrow. Just tonight, while in flight on your windowsill, they'd lie to tell you all of my tears. And tonight you would hear the saddest song of the year, and you'd be mine once again. Come tomorrow. If the song of the swallow could reveal my sorrow, then my dear, he would sing just for you. And tonight you would hear the saddest song, oh, of the year, and you'd be mine once again. Come tomorrow. Oh yes, tonight you'd hear the saddest song of the year, and you'd be mine once again. Come tomorrow. Sing, 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 Mr. Songbird. Come on and sing just one little song.
It was I don't know if it was ever a hit, even in America. It was the lady who, I had been a big fan of her gospel recordings, Sister Rosetta Tharpe and Sister Marie Knight. Marie Knight went on to be she was a kind of female Little Richard at once. She was an enormous voice, drive like nobody's business, just like Little Richard. Wow, that kind of impact.
We went out, it was late at night. There was no people nowhere in sight. I didn't know how the news got around. People talking about us all over town. I thought I told you not to tell them. I thought I told you not to tell them.
But Come Tomorrow was a ballad. It was on the B-side of a song called Nothing. And I don't think that, again, the record company, whichever it was in Great Britain, knew what they had. The guy from The Searchers, Frank Allen. Frank Allen said to me that he also bought that record, that single by Marie Knight. She went on to be, she had some sort of northern soul hits as well. She was darn good. Her best records were the gospel records she made. Up Above My Head, I Hear Music in the Air, and things like that. They were so great together. That was a number 4 record for us in '65. And then we did a Bob Dylan song. We'd actually already done one Bob Dylan song on an EP, and that was With God on Our Side. which was a protest song really about war. If You Gotta Go, Go Now, which was the Bob Dylan song that we did in '65, that was our biggest hit since Do Wah Diddy.
Now I don't want to make you give anything you never gave before. It's just that I'll be sleeping soon. It'll be too dark for you to find the door. But if you got to go, well, it's alright. But if you got to go, go now, or else you got to stay all night.
And then we also had another #1, which was Pretty Flamingo, and that was the last one before we broke. But I broke from the group.
Some sweet day I'll make my mind pretty flamingo. Then every guy will envy me, 'cause paradise is where I'll be.
And what happened, I stayed with EMI and they went to Philips, Fontana. It was it's Universal now, or is it?
That was Mighty Quinn.
Yeah, Pretty Flamingo was actually, well, no, actually the Bob Dylan songs, the first one that wasn't my idea.
The music that the group is hitting with is music that you are bringing into the group.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they can't, if this is a collaboration, why aren't we all out looking for material? Doesn't sound like it.
Well, they were.
Really? But finding nothing?
That's how, well, other things came in, I suppose, but as the singer, I still had the option of refusing to sing.
I don't like that song. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. I got persuaded into If You Gotta Go, Go Now. And of course, you know, they said, well, we were right, weren't we? #2 in the charts.
Now I don't want to make you give anything you never gave before. It's just that I'll be sleeping soon. It'll be too dark for you to find the door. But if you got to go, well, it's alright. But if you got to go, go now, or else you got to stay all night.
So
We were right in the sense that
and it was top 30 in America as well. So
we didn't make #1, so we were right. Is that what you're saying?
well, yes, we were right to record a Bob Dylan song, although you didn't want to record it, but
Oh, I see. That's what they're telling you.
actually Pretty Flamingo I didn't want to record either. Now I love it.
Well, we loved it back then. As young kids in America, boy, these guys keep bringing us great music. You know, thank you, but you didn't like it. You didn't want to do it.
I think I wanted to keep on covering. We had to do covers. After 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which was top 5, we then, the whole group wrote a song. Tom McGuinness, who's the only one still there from the early 60s with me.
Yeah.
He said that song was written by committee. And it was.
Which song are you talking about?
It's called Hubble Bubble, Toil and Trouble. It was just after 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But it didn't make the top 10 in this country. Stopped at 11. And the record company, in the person of John Burgess, our A&R man, said, right, from now on, You can write as much as you like, but none of it will come out as a single. Only songs by proper teams of songwriters, or proper teams of songwriters will be done as singles. Your songs will come out on LP tracks, EP tracks, and B-sides. So, another ultimatum from them, and we just said, okay. And that's why I spent so much time listening to radio stations like Radio Luxembourg and buying obscure records that should have been massive hits. And that kind of worked for the next 3 hits after that. Sha-la-la. But Oh No, Not My Baby. That was another one. That had been a bit of a hit in America, but again, it was, it had dropped out of the charts. That was fabulous. Oh No, Not My Baby was recorded by Maxine Brown on Wand Records. Who did Are You Lonely For Me, Baby? Are you lonely for me, baby? Yes, I am. Chuck Jackson.
Unwind. That's what he recorded, yeah. Any Day Now?
Any Day Now, yes,
Yeah,
that's
that
right.
was all on
Chuck,
Wand.
Chuck
Yeah.
Jackson. And he did duets with Maxine Brown on Wand Records. So, anyway, she did that one on her own, and boy, it was beautiful. That's Carole King and Jerry Goffin. Beautiful song. Oh No, Not My Baby. I love to play it to this day, sing it to this day.
1966 comes and goes, and you've got Pretty Flamingo, the last major hit. And then you say, I'm going to be a movie star. 1967. No?
No, I get a phone call. Most of my life has been phone calls from other people, changes of direction. I get a phone call from, I can't remember now whether it was from Peter Watkins, who was the director of the film Privilege, or it may have been from somebody from the production side. But they said, do you want to be in this film Privilege? Now, I've been reading about it in the music press. And I said, I don't know, I don't really want a small part in an Eric Burdon movie. And they said, Eric Burdon's not in it. We're casting for... Eric Burdon was going to be in that film. And he probably would have been really good as well. But sometime afterwards, I said to the director, Peter Watkins, I said, why did you not have Eric Burdon? Because you were going to have Eric Burdon. He said, yes, we were going to have Eric Burdon. He said, but there was sort of 5% missing there. And I know exactly what that 5% was. It was height.
Really?
Yeah, because the female lead was Jean Shrimpton, and she was about 5'10".
Yeah, tall model, yeah.
And he was about 5'9". So, or...
Not even that, is he?
Well, he might even been a bit less than that,
Yeah.
But anyway, so I got it by being a bit taller. So that's the only reason. I had no intention of becoming a film star at all.
Really?
No.
I thought you sought that out. I thought you wanted to be. They drafted you.
Yep, I was drafted in.
And you said, okay.
Okay, I'll do it. The only reason I said okay was because I was a big Peter Watkins fan. He had two things behind him at that point. One, it was a film about, the atomic bomb going off in Britain, what that would do to people. It was called The War Game. That's what it was called, The War Game. And he had also done a wonderful film for television called Culloden. It was about the Battle of Culloden, which essentially was, between the Scots and the English. So it was all political, everything that he did. But I decided I wanted to do whatever he did next. So it didn't take me a long time to say yes.
So you jumped right into this movie from performing on stage.
Yeah.
And I saw some of the clips of that. You got pretty serious about your role. You were pretty good. It looked like it to me.
I like to think I was. I like to think my acting career is apparently over, but I like to think I was quite good. But only subsequent to that film, rather than. Do you know? I didn't understand anything about what acting was at that stage, and essentially, Peter Watkins would sort of show me what he wanted me to do, and I would sort of watch him closely, and then I would essentially imitate to the best of my ability what he had shown me. So I blame my performance on him. but
You mean I credit my performance to him?
yes, that's right. Yeah. If you don't like it, I blame him. If you do like it, I credit
Okay.
him.
Well, okay, now we know where the responsibility lies. Yeah. But that wasn't the end of your acting career, was it?
No, far from it. I had a couple of hits in this country. Well, actually, and Sweden. I was big in Scandinavia for some reason.
As a solo or as Manfred?
Solo. Actually, Manfred Mann were pretty big, but I was even bigger after I left. So I used to tour there every year, and my records were hits in Sweden, or maybe even other Scandinavian countries, but when they even beyond where they were in this country. I was doing okay. I got asked to do a tour of Australia and New Zealand, and possibly a gig in somewhere in the Far East, maybe Hong Kong or something like that. And the top of the bill was The Who, and next on the bill was the Small Faces, and then me. My records sold in New Zealand after they'd stopped selling anywhere else, even Australia.
1968?
Yeah, 68, that's right, yeah. I went and did that tour, and it was kind of hairy. I mean, the Manfreds were always relatively innocent compared with a lot of bands. And I felt slightly out of my depth, really, on that tour. Although I really enjoyed the company of some people on it. Kenny Jones, who was the Faces drummer at that time, was, I don't know, I just really enjoyed his company. And Roger from The Who. After we got back, Roger Daltrey and I were on a television program with Tim Rice for some reason.
Oh yeah.
And we were not long back from the tour, and Roger said to me, "I think you and I were the only two sane ones on that tour, weren't we?" And I thought, close.
Yeah. Now Tim Rice, I met him at the Buddy Holly 50th anniversary of his death, '09, in Clear Lake, Iowa. And he was there. He sang and he performed. He enjoyed the old rock and roll. But how was he working with him?
Working with
Tim Rice. You worked?
lots of times. Yeah, he's great. He's a great sort of music fan.
Yeah.
He had a standing order at his local record shop when there were local record shops.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it was whatever gets into the charts, I want a copy.
Really?
So he has this amazing
He has to have it.
collection
Yeah.
of sometimes useless records. But anyway, yeah, no, he's a lovely guy, Tim. He's probably more interested in cricket nowadays than he is in he really always slightly more interested in cricket than music, but I did a lot of work for him and Tim. I did more than one production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I did Evita.
That's right.
I was the original studio recording version of
Juan?
Perron. And then the next part of my acting career, which would have been shortly after getting back from that Australian tour, because as much as I enjoyed it, and I did enjoy it quite a lot, I thought, I'm a bit old for this sort of thing, really. I was, what, 26?
The rock and roll stuff?
Yeah.
You think you're graduating and growing out of it?
I thought there must
Tell
be...
that to Mick.
There must
Jagger
be...
now.
Yeah. Or tell it to me, actually, now. At that time, I was thinking, oh, I've got to do something that, grown-ups do. And I was just sort of sitting at home enjoying myself, and the phone rang.
Another phone call comes.
And it's a guy called Charles Marowitz, a Canadian theatre director. He ran a sort of off-Broadway style theatre called the Open Space in a basement in London. And he'd cast 2 one-act plays entirely with Americans, with the exception of about 3 Canadians. And suddenly his leading man had jumped ship. His leading man's agent in America had called him and said, "Get here yesterday. You have a television series. I promise you." So he got on the next plane to New York, and that was that.
What was the TV series?
I don't know what it was. I don't know.
Did it fly or did it fail?
No, I didn't find out. Charles Marowitz says to me, "I've exhausted all the American actors in London, and as far as I know, the rest of the United Kingdom." He said, I had to fill it up with Canadians. The thought occurred to me, you sing with an American accent. So I said, well, I try to. And he said, would you come over to my flat and audition your accent for me? And I said, yes, of course I would. So I didn't even know who he was at that time. I went over to his house. He said, right, we'll have a conversation and you will be American. And I said, okay, and I did what I thought would do it. And he said, you can do it.
That'll work.
So he said, however, I want you to, how much acting have you done? And I said, well, I did this film, and I've done a couple of episodes of things on television, soaps, and guest baddie, or whatever it might be. And he said, yeah, what do you know about the method? And I said, what method?
Acting method?
Yeah, that's what he meant. And I said, oh, I don't know. And he then gave me a kind of 90-minute lecture on the method. He said, well, the one thing that acting is not, which everybody thinks it is pretending. It's not pretending. You've got to dig deep enough into yourself for it to be real.
You have to become that character.
So I said, okay. He said, and the other thing that really characterizes the method is that what you are acting is not necessarily what you are saying. You might be saying one thing, but your motive is something quite different. I said, okay. He said, I want you to do an exercise for me. He said, do you know any speeches from plays or anything on by heart? And I said, no. He said, what do you know by heart? I said, well, the lyrics of songs. So he said, okay, what's that big record that you had? I said, Do Wah Diddy. He said, yeah, well, you know that by heart. I said, of course I did. So he said, right, that's your text. But what you actually want is you want to sell some stuff in a street market. It's not very good stuff, but you're trying to convince people that it is, and you want them to have it, and you want them to pay you for it. So I just did that. I mean, it's kind of weird, but I'm going, do what diddy, diddy dum diddy do, you know, and all that sort of stuff.
Trying to persuade somebody
Yeah.
to purchase
Yeah.
what you've got through the words of your song.
Yeah, and he said, I think we can work together. The schedule for this is so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. Are you up for it? I said, yes, I am. So I went and I did those 2 one-act plays, and all of a sudden I'm an actor. As a result of doing those, I get cast in a thing called Conduct Unbecoming, which I was in for a whole year in London. Then 5 of us from the cast of about 20-something went to New York and played it on Broadway as well. And then I came back, and all of a sudden I'm doing Shakespeare, Shaw. I had a full collection of Little Walter harmonica tracks. Charlie McCoy, country.
Out of Tennessee, Nashville.
Yeah.
What are you talking about all of a sudden? How do you get to him?
I just heard Stone Fox Chase. That's all I needed. And I'm going, how does he do that? I bought all his records. I learned to play Merle Haggard songs and things like that because of Charlie. He was my teacher. He didn't know what he was, and so in between Walter and Sonny Boy Williamson and Junior Wells and all them, and Charlie McCoy, I learned to play harmonica. Finally, I mean, yes, I played on a lot of records by Manfred Mann. I really learned how to do it while I was on tour with productions of Romeo and Juliet or something like that. I spent the next 10 years from early '69, I did those 2 one-act plays with Meros. Early '79, I started the blues band.
How long were you doing the one-act plays? Was that a
Oh, the one-act plays were just a few weeks.
Oh, okay. I thought.
And then I get into Conduct Unbecoming, and I go to America, and I come back from America and do various things. I mean, I did some musical. People thought I did musicals before I did theatre, but actually I did Shakespeare, Shaw, and all those things before I really got into any musicals. But I did one called Pippin, which was a big hit in America. In this country, the Ben Vereen part was played by Northern J. Calloway in England. But I was playing the title role, Pippin.
From Do Wah Diddy, you had a pretty broad spectrum of entertainment.
Yeah.
And
In '79, I started the blues band. The blues band broke up last year, 2022, after not quite unbroken 43 years. About 2.5 years we were off the road in the in the early 80s, and that was because I was doing theatre. I was back in the theatre. All of a sudden I was doing, well actually I was doing some of it during the blues band. But I actually sort of came out of the blues band because I was at the National Theatre. I was doing the Marlon Brando part in Guys and Dolls. And another thing as well, I was playing Macheath the Highwayman in The Beggar's Opera. So,
But you seem to be not slowing down.
oh yeah, I've slowed down. I mean, just not having the blues band and the Manfreds going at the same time, it was a slowdown. To be honest, I've started to do little one-off gigs, or in some cases big one-off gigs, without the Manfreds as well as doing the Manfreds.
Well,
So,
what music are you doing?
sort of big band jazz and small band jazz as well.
You're not doing any Do Wah Diddy?
No, I don't do it. I mean, I just saved Do Wah Diddy for the Manfreds
Yeah.
gigs.
Yeah, okay.
But we're doing all the hits. I mean, next month we start a 2-month tour, and
Where are you going to be?
it's all over the UK.
Oh, in the UK.
And Mike Darbo will be there as well.
I saw that, yeah, that you've been performing with him.
Yeah. But people say, how do you do that? You know, do you just walk off the stage when it's one of his songs? And I said, no. I play harmonica and do backing vocals behind him. And he does backing vocals and plays keyboards behind me.
Oh.
It works.
Well, Paul, I want to thank you for a pleasant day going through the history of both Manfred Mann and Paul Jones. But I know you're still rock and rolling on stage, even though you're over the age of 30. So music has obviously kept you young. It has kept you active in your life.
Yeah.
And as we get older, there's no reason to slow down, no reason to stop, as long as you feel good and you like what you're doing. And I've never seen you on stage before, but that's going to change in the very near future. So I'm going to have to make plans to come back when you're touring or when you're on stage and performing all the big hits. And when I do, I'm going to bring all my friends, okay? Because we're all going to want to see you.
Okay.
All right? Doing all the big hits?
Yeah, well, that sounds good to me.
All right, buddy. I'll see you again real soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, as it were.
No,
I've had
thank you for having me. I appreciate you bringing me out to the house here and doing this. So we're going to see Paul on stage real soon.
Listen to me, baby.